The request was only a few lines long, but the moment King Charles reached its final sentence, his expression hardened. Meghan had not simply asked to return to royal life. She had demanded temporary recognition under a protected title connected directly to Catherine's future position. The king pushed the letter away, rose from his chair and ordered the doors closed. What followed was not a negotiation. It was the beginning of a royal reckoning. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles stood in silence as the room emptied. The morning briefing at Clarence House had begun with schedules, charity updates, and routine correspondence. Yet the final file carried a demand that cut through every layer of royal restraint. Meghan wanted to return through the designation Princess of Wales Representative, a restricted title allowing a trusted working royal to act for Catherine during illness or incapacity. In plain terms, it was authority borrowed from the future queen without ever asking permission. The king read the proposed duties again: public appearances, charitable patronages, palace representation, security privileges, a place beside senior royals. Meghan was not asking to help from a distance. She wanted to enter Catherine's space while the princess guarded her health. Charles removed his glasses, placed them beside the letter, and said Catherine's vulnerability would not become another person's opportunity. His voice stayed low, but the anger beneath it filled the room. Charles understood what was at stake. Catherine's position had been built through years of service, discipline, and trust. Allowing another person to use her designation would suggest that her authority could be separated from her identity and handed to whoever created enough pressure. Then the hidden strategy surfaced. A highlighted paragraph showed that Meghan's team had prepared draft announcements in California. The language praised reconciliation, duty, and modern service, as though the palace had already agreed. Charles saw the trap. Accept the proposal, and Meghan returned with royal authority. Reject it publicly, and the monarchy could be accused of cruelty. William arrived minutes later, after an urgent summons. He found his father near the fireplace, gripping the request without speaking. The prince sensed this was no ordinary family dispute. Charles offered no greeting. He looked at him and asked, "Has Catherine seen this?" William's answer changed the air. Catherine had seen it, and she recognized the exact wording. Those phrases had been spoken before, during a private confrontation the family believed had been buried forever. To understand why those few words struck Catherine so deeply, the palace first had to confront what each person stood to lose if Meghan succeeded. For Charles, the request challenged his authority. For William, it threatened his wife. For Catherine, it reopened a wound she had never discussed publicly. And for Meghan, it represented what she believed was her final path back into royal relevance. The forbidden title was more than ceremonial language. It carried history, legitimacy, and proximity to the crown. Whoever controlled it could shape how the monarchy was seen during its most vulnerable moment. Catherine held the proposal in both hands, while William watched her expression change. The Princess of Wales was the title given to the wife of the direct heir, but the protected designation beneath it had a narrower purpose. It allowed a trusted working royal to assist with selected duties without taking Catherine's rank, identity, or place. Charles and the prince had never activated it publicly, because even temporary use could create confusion over who truly spoke for her office. Catherine did not sound furious when she finally spoke. She sounded tired. She asked William why every period of weakness was treated like an empty chair waiting for someone else. Her reduced schedule had been designed to protect her health and family, not to invite another person into the authority she had built through years of discipline. William struggled to hide his anger. He told his wife that Meghan's demand was not praise for her importance. It was an attempt to borrow the influence, trust, and public standing Catherine had earned. The future king understood why the distinction mattered. Once the palace allowed her office to be separated from her identity, the boundary might never be restored. Charles felt the betrayal from another direction. The king had kept one private family channel open because he still hoped communication might one day lead to peace. Now he feared that patience had been mistaken for weakness. His willingness to listen had given Meghan a route to deliver a demand carrying constitutional weight. Meghan waited beside a silent phone in California, refusing to believe the palace could reject her without consequence. She had convinced herself that refusal would make the monarchy appear cold, divided, and unwilling to reconcile. Her determination was rooted in desperation, but it was still determination. Camilla urged Charles to move carefully. The Queen Consort warned that an aggressive rejection could trigger another public war. William heard caution, as pressure to compromise Catherine, and the tension inside the family deepened. Princess Anne changed the entire question when she received the briefing. She asked how Meghan had learned the exact internal wording of a title known only to senior royals and constitutional advisors, officials who explain how power and duty operate within the crown. Catherine finally remembered the answer. Meghan had heard those words years earlier, during a closed-door ceremony that ended with a warning nobody had taken seriously enough. The demand had shocked the palace, but the true source of the crisis lay in one forgotten encounter, when Meghan first learned that Catherine possessed an authority she could never claim. The title had not appeared in a public announcement, royal biography, or palace bulletin. Meghan first heard it during a private investiture rehearsal at Windsor, when Catherine was shown the emergency responsibilities attached to her future position. Most of the family remembered that afternoon as an awkward disagreement over protocol. Catherine remembered something else. Meghan standing near the doorway, silent and attentive, as an advisor explained precisely how the protected title could temporarily carry the authority of the Princess of Wales. 18 months earlier, Catherine had entered the rehearsal expecting a routine discussion before a major state ceremony. An investiture is a formal royal event, where honors are presented. But this private preparation went much further. Charles, William, and senior advisors were reviewing emergency succession procedures, meaning the plans used to protect royal duties when illness or crisis prevents a senior figure from serving normally. Catherine listened as the advisor introduced the designation Princess of Wales Representative. The role could be activated only by the sovereign, meaning the reigning monarch, and only for a trusted working royal acting with her direct approval. It carried ceremonial access, selected patronages, temporary precedence, and permission to speak in the princess's name. Then the door opened. Meghan entered after requesting a private conversation with Charles. She was meant to wait elsewhere, yet she remained long enough to hear every important detail. Her expression barely changed, but Catherine noticed the silence. Meghan was not confused. She was calculating what the role could become. Meghan finally asked why someone living outside Britain could not receive the designation. Catherine answered calmly that royal representation required trust, service, and accountability to the crown. The reply was controlled, but the meaning was unmistakable. Distance was not the real barrier. Conduct was. Meghan pushed back. She argued that public recognition should matter more than geography, and that influence could be exercised from anywhere. Catherine heard ambition beneath the words. William heard it too. The prince stepped between them and ended the exchange before restraint collapsed completely. Charles watched Meghan leave, but Catherine remained unsettled. She told the king privately that the question had not sounded hypothetical. It sounded prepared. She believed Meghan was testing whether a future return could be built around someone else's authority. Hours later, a palace aide discovered that one rehearsal briefing had been moved from its folder. No document was officially declared missing, and the disturbance was dismissed as clerical confusion. Catherine never accepted that explanation. She remembered standing alone after the rehearsal, feeling that something private had already been taken. Now Anne produced the old security log. It showed Meghan had spent 11 unaccounted minutes outside the constitutional briefing room. With the forgotten security log reopened, and Catherine's fears confirmed, Charles decided that correspondence was no longer enough. The matter would be settled face to face. There were no cameras, no press secretaries, and no advisors seated between them. Charles agreed to one private video conversation, so Meghan could explain the demand in her own words. She entered the call expecting negotiation. Instead, the king placed her proposal on the table and asked a single question. Why had she used Catherine's protected title without Catherine's consent? Meghan paused, steadied herself, and gave an answer that transformed his anger into something far more permanent. Charles kept William nearby, but out of view, as the secure call began from Windsor Castle. The system allowed no recording, no outside connection, and no staff participation. The king made the terms clear at once. This was about constitutional boundaries, meaning the rules that control how royal authority is used, not about personal reconciliation or family forgiveness. Meghan refused to accept that distinction. She said she was not stealing Catherine's identity. She claimed she was offering protection while the princess followed a reduced schedule. Charles leaned forward and answered with a sentence that ended any illusion of compromise. Protection, he said, does not begin by exploiting another woman's absence. Meghan's frustration broke through. She spoke of global influence, charity work, public reach, and the ability to modernize an institution she believed had pushed her aside. She argued that the palace had ignored what she could still offer. The demand was no longer framed as service. It sounded like a debt she believed the monarchy owed her. Charles remained still until Meghan called the role unused authority. Then the king struck the desk once with the side of his hand. Catherine, he said, was a person, not a vacancy. Her position could not be treated as abandoned property simply because she needed time away from public duty. Meghan finally disclosed the source of her confidence. A former palace contact had helped reconstruct the exact wording and had assured her the designation could be activated without Catherine's approval. The admission confirmed the breach Anne had feared and exposed the proposal as a planned challenge, not a hopeful request. William stepped into view. The prince told Meghan the legal claim was false and that no sovereign could use Catherine's office against her will. Her expression tightened. She now understood that the family knew she had received help from someone once trusted inside the household. Charles lowered his voice and offered one final escape. "Withdraw the proposal privately," he said, "and the palace would not expose the attempt." Meghan refused. She insisted the monarchy would eventually need her more than it wished to admit. The king closed the folder and ended the call. He ordered his private secretary, the senior official managing his formal communications, to suspend every informal channel connected to Meghan's return. Before the screen went dark, she issued one final warning. Her team was ready to release the proposal publicly. Meghan believed public pressure would weaken the king, but she had misjudged the quiet network of authority already moving behind him. Charles possessed the crown, but he was not making this decision alone. William controlled access to Catherine's household. Anne guarded the standards of royal service. And Catherine held the one consent Meghan could never bypass. Inside a late-night meeting at Windsor, the four of them examined the request line by line. What began as a question about one title quickly became a judgment on whether Meghan could ever again be trusted with the monarchy's name, duties, or authority. Charles convened the private family council without advisors in the room. He wanted honesty before procedure took over. A family council was an informal meeting between senior royals, not a legal body, but its decisions could shape the formal orders issued afterward. William explained that Catherine's protected designation belonged to her household, meaning it could not be activated without approval from the sovereign, the heir, and the princess herself. Catherine listened with her hands folded, while the others debated power, precedent, and consequences. When the king finally asked what she wanted, she answered without hesitation. Her title could not become a bridge for someone who had repeatedly undermined her. then returned only when royal authority became useful again. Charles felt the weight of Harry behind every word. A permanent refusal might destroy his final hope of rebuilding some relationship with his younger son. Catherine saw the conflict on his face. She told him gently that he had to decide as king, not only as a father. Mercy toward one child could not come at the cost of another family member's dignity. William's restraint broke next. The prince argued that every compromise had become the foundation for another demand. Anne agreed. She reminded Charles that royal service was built on discipline and accountability, not publicity campaigns or emotional pressure. Meghan could not leave the system, attack its boundaries, and then demand authority inside it. Anne then opened a documented security report. Investigators had traced the wording sent to Meghan back to a retired communications consultant who had once worked with both royal households. The consultant had kept confidential briefing notes long after leaving palace service. Her next revelation was worse. Recorded message logs showed recent contact between that consultant and a member of Meghan's team. The forbidden title had not been discovered by chance. It had been reconstructed deliberately. Charles crossed the room and opened a cabinet containing old family correspondence. He removed a photograph of Harry and Meghan, studied it for several seconds, then placed it back face down. Catherine formally refused consent. William supported her. Anne recommended a permanent prohibition. The king approved a written order declaring the designation non-transferable. Then a palace communications officer entered with devastating news. Meghan's proposal had already reached an American broadcaster. The palace had reached its decision in private, but Meghan's leaked proposal ensured that its consequences would now unfold before the entire world. The leak appeared before dawn in London. A broadcaster described Meghan's plan as a generous offer to support Catherine during a difficult period, carefully avoiding the forbidden title's true power. Within minutes, commentators praised the proposal as an act of reconciliation. But inside the palace, nobody saw generosity. Charles saw manipulation. William saw an attack on his wife. And in California, Harry discovered that the request had been sent without his full knowledge. Charles understood the danger immediately. The leaked story described Meghan as willing to resume temporary royal duties, yet it omitted the requested precedents: security privileges, title access, and control over selected patronages. Precedents meant the official order determining where royals stood and how they were ranked at public events. Without those details, the proposal looked selfless. With them, it became a demand for power. The palace faced a brutal choice. Silence would allow Meghan's version to harden into accepted truth. A detailed response could defend Catherine, but it might also expose private plans surrounding her health and reduced schedule. William refused to let his wife's personal struggle become evidence in another public battle. Catherine watched the coverage with the sound muted. The princess stayed composed until one presenter described her as unable to fulfill her role. She switched off the television and fought back tears. That phrase did more than question her strength. It turned a painful period of recovery into justification for replacing her. Charles responded with force. The king ordered the restricted designation removed from all contingency planning, the emergency system used to keep royal duties functioning during illness or crisis. No outsider would ever again interpret it as a route back into the monarchy. Harry confronted Meghan after reading the complete proposal in California. He pushed a chair away and demanded to know why his name had been attached to a plan he had never approved. She insisted that waiting had achieved nothing. He answered that she had transformed his hope for family reconciliation into a campaign for institutional power. Meghan finally admitted that the former palace consultant had promised Charles would surrender once the proposal became public. Harry understood then that the leak had never been an accident. It was the pressure mechanism from the beginning. William received even darker proof. A copied media plan contained prepared headlines, interview themes, and pressure points designed to portray Catherine as the woman blocking another woman's service. The prince saw calculation where the public had first seen compassion. Charles signed the order ending every negotiation, involving duties, patronages, household access, ceremonial involvement, or temporary representation for Meghan. Then Catherine requested one private conversation before the announcement. She did not want the final judgment delivered as revenge. Catherine had every reason to demand punishment, but in the quiet before the announcement, she chose to speak not as a future queen, but as a woman who understood what permanent exile could cost. Catherine entered the king's private sitting room without William, aides, or legal advisors. Charles expected her to demand the strongest possible punishment. Instead, she asked him to separate Meghan's actions from Harry's future. The princess did not soften her refusal, nor did she forgive the attempted use of her title. But she understood that one decision could close more than a professional door. It could destroy the final personal path between a father and his younger son. Catherine had insisted on speaking alone because she wanted Charles to hear her without pressure from competing households. The formal order was the written decision that would define what royal roles, duties, and access remained available. Once issued, it would carry the authority of the crown and leave almost no room for reversal. She made her position clear. Meghan could never use the protected designation, represent her office, control her patronages, or return through a temporary role disguised as assistance. The request had crossed a boundary too personal to ignore and too dangerous to repeat. Charles admitted that his fury came partly from guilt. The king believed his attempts to remain approachable had created the impression that every royal limit could eventually be negotiated away. He had wanted to preserve family contact. Instead, his patience had been used as evidence that pressure might still work. Catherine did not excuse that mistake. She told him that compassion without limits becomes permission. Yet she also warned that punishing Harry for a plan he had not fully understood would repeat the same injustice in another form. Meghan had made the demand. The younger prince should not lose every private path to his father because of it. Charles asked the question he had avoided. Could she ever sit in the same room with Meghan again? Catherine paused. She answered that civility might one day be possible, but trust and royal partnership were finished. The future queen could forgive pain without surrendering judgment. She could remain humane without pretending the betrayal had not happened. The king revised the order. Meghan's institutional return would remain permanently closed, but a narrow private channel would stay open for Harry to contact his father outside royal business. Catherine then made one final request. The palace must not disclose her health details when correcting the leaked story, even though those facts would make Meghan's strategy appear far more ruthless. Charles took the original proposal and tore away the page containing Catherine's restricted title. He placed it into the fire, but kept the remaining pages as evidence. Before she left, the king thanked her for protecting the crown and the part of him that still hoped to speak with his son again. By sunrise, Catherine's title had been protected, and Meghan's path back had been closed, but the public had yet to hear the words that would define the entire confrontation. The palace statement contained no insults and revealed no private medical information. Its language was brief, almost cold. Catherine's office could not be transferred, borrowed, represented, or used as a route into royal service without her personal consent. Meghan's proposal had been rejected permanently. Then one newspaper published the headline that changed the mood of the entire debate, transforming what had been presented as an offer of help into a struggle over identity, authority, and trust. Buckingham Palace confirmed that no person living outside the working monarchy could hold, share, or temporarily exercise authority connected to the Princess of Wales. The working monarchy meant the small group of royals carrying out official duties on behalf of the crown. The statement also ended every rumor of negotiations over patronages, public representation, ceremonial roles, security, or a return to formal service. The public response changed within hours. A major London newspaper placed Catherine on its front page, beneath 5 words that cut through the confusion. Her title is not an empty chair. The headline turned the argument away from sympathy and toward consent. Meghan's proposal no longer looked like simple help. It looked like an attempt to step into another woman's authority. Outside Kensington Palace, a small crowd gathered near the gates. One woman placed white flowers beside a handwritten card reading, "Service cannot be borrowed." Others stood quietly nearby, their presence reflecting a mood the palace could never manufacture through official language. A veteran royal commentator sharpened the debate during an evening broadcast. In a recorded studio discussion, he said the issue was not whether Meghan deserved forgiveness. It was whether forgiveness could include restoring power that no longer belonged to her. Meghan's supporters pushed back. They argued that the palace had rejected initiative and closed another path toward reconciliation. Others answered that the proposal had placed Catherine under pressure while she was protecting her health, family, and future role. Catherine saw the newspaper while eating breakfast with William. The princess studied the front page, then folded it closed. She did not want their children to see her identity discussed as public property. The prince understood the gesture immediately. Public support could still feel like another form of exposure. American media outlets then obtained the complete proposal. The sections requesting precedence, security privileges, title access, and patronage authority destroyed the earlier story of simple charitable assistance. Meghan watched the corrected coverage in silence. After receiving confirmation that no further palace response or negotiation would come, she turned off her phone. The headlines would fade, but the final judgment reached far beyond one proposal, leaving Charles, Catherine, William, Harry, and Meghan to live with what could no longer be undone. In the end, Meghan's request failed because it misunderstood the source of royal authority. Catherine's position did not exist simply because a title had been written beside her name. It had been built through years of service, restraint, loyalty, and trust. Charles's fury was not only about protocol. It came from seeing a woman's vulnerability treated as an opening and a family relationship turned into leverage. The final verdict therefore became personal, constitutional, and absolute. Charles issued the permanent order without hesitation. Meghan could never use Catherine's restricted designation or any title suggesting that she represented the princess, the Wales household, or the working monarchy. The Wales household meant the official team supporting William, Catherine, and their royal duties. That boundary now carried the full authority of the crown. The palace closed every institutional path back. Temporary duties, royal patronages, ceremonial representation, security-linked engagements, and advisory roles were removed from consideration. Meghan would not return through charity work, public pressure, or a title borrowed from another woman. Charles accepted the hardest truth. Preserving a private relationship with Harry could not require weakening royal boundaries again and again. The king left one personal channel open for his younger son, but every negotiation concerning Meghan's status was finished. Catherine refused to celebrate. The princess felt relief that her authority had been protected, yet sadness remained beneath it. She had never wanted another family conflict to end in permanent separation. Still, she understood that compassion could not demand self-erasure. Forgiveness did not require surrendering the identity she had spent years building. William saw the decision as more than a husband defending his wife. The prince understood that protecting Catherine's position was part of preparing to defend the monarchy they would one day lead together. His loyalty became both personal and constitutional. Harry faced a painful conclusion. His hope of returning with Meghan to official royal life was over. Any future reconciliation would have to happen as a son and brother, not through duties, titles, security, or public bargaining. Meghan confronted a reality influence could not change. Success outside the monarchy could not recreate authority inside it. The forbidden title offered no shortcut, because the trust beneath it could never be demanded. Charles later met Catherine and William in the same room where he had first read the proposal. The king placed the signed order inside a locked cabinet, turned the key, and told them the matter was finished. Meghan's attempt had not weakened Catherine. It confirmed her unique place. Charles's anger became a boundary, William's loyalty became a promise, and the princess emerged as an irreplaceable foundation of the monarchy's future. The door Meghan tried to reopen was closed for good, and the crown's message could not have been clearer. Catherine's name, authority, and future would never again be treated as another person's opportunity. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.